Okay, my dear, there's a television show, which I've never seen, I'll admit, called Modern Family.
Yes.
Heard of it?
Very famous show, yes.
Heard it's funny? Never saw. You?
Have not seen it.
However, there is a true Modern Family alive and well today in Haley, Idaho, according to Google. Check this out. Idaho. Demi Moore. We all know she lives there, right?
I don't know that.
No?
I don't
She
know
divorces Bruce Willis.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Marries Ashton Kutcher.
Yes.
Lives in Idaho.
Yes.
Of
maybe.
all places.
Maybe.
3 daughters.
Yes.
I think with Bruce. Now is divorced from Ashton Kutcher. Were they married? Or were they just together?
I don't know. Where's this going?
Anyways, she's living there today. They say isolating with her 3 daughters. Not only is she living with them, she's living with, get this, Bruce Willis, her ex-husband, his wife, and their 2 daughters.
A Modern Family.
What are you guys doing?
The Landscapes and Pancakes podcast.
Wow.
There are a gajillion aspects to the green industry.
All right.
I just want this podcast to be real.
Interesting.
It's not always fun.
What?
But I think people go through this.
I know, none of it makes sense.
Seriously?
We are the ones designing and we are the ones building.
We respect each other.
Respect.
All right, so I have a bone to pick with you.
This is I think becoming very typical of our podcast. I feel like I'm always in trouble every time we start recording
This
lately.
is the first time that I've said this.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
No, this is the first time I've said this.
I feel like there's a lot of bone picking going on.
Well, if you don't start to shape up, there's going to be.
That probably won't happen.
So listen, we were having a conversation the other day about a meeting that I had with a client, and you got pretty animated. Well, yeah, I mean, you got kind of
Me?
upset about the fact that they wanted to remove something from the plan.
Oh.
And I feel like this has been happening more and more with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wanted to have a therapy session about the fact that, you know, design is a give and take between us and our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And the ultimate design is always based on a lot of different considerations, not only aesthetic and function, but also budget.
Yes.
And so I do feel like my role is to fight for the things that are important, but also make sure it's a team effort between us and our clients to compromise when needed. What say you?
Sure. I guess lately I want to fight a little more for what I know is important aesthetically and functioning. Now, this is kind of difficult on that particular issue because you're talking about that little bulb of stonework that came out.
Yeah.
That actually served as a drain as well because it was pervious and because of the grading that we had to do with everything that was happening on that site.
Right. And
So-
I think that was on me not either having explained that clearly enough or making, I didn't. I think I didn't explain the fact that not only was it relating to different parts of the design, but it was also functional in its drainage aspect.
Yeah. That's a little tough in that it was serving 2 functions. And on that particular design, that shape kind of flowed through the pool and kind of came out on the other side for one continuous kind of biomorphic awesomeness.
Right.
So,
but it's not the first time that we've had this conversation.
No. I think, and maybe it's because we are where we're at now,
I don't know what that means.
The years that we have in.
Yeah.
I think there's been a growing frustration with me over the last few years. Not so much this year. I think we're kind of getting our mojo back a little bit, but we kind of fallen into this scenario where we're kind of feeding the beast, and the beast being the construction end. So the design is almost supplementing, in a way, the construction. So stuff's kind of getting not dumbed down, but we're losing some of our creative vibe because we got to feed the overhead, which is the construction and the labor, and your time is less so now with homeschooling, with the kids and everything. I feel like I know. I feel like you're stuck. I think there was a point where perhaps I was being
too budget conscientious in a way.
Well, I think you are right from the beginning. I think
But
lately,
I need to be.
I know, but I think lately you're almost trying to justify budget going into a meeting without even sometimes knowing what the budget is.
No, but my job is to always give options.
Yes.
And you
yes.
have to understand that in doing that, we're not always going to end up with the option that we want.
I do understand that, and I think you're really good at that. And that's why it's not your personality, but your approach to that is very much needed when you have me as a business partner. Because I'm just, you tend to reel it back in, which is really important. And you do a great job of it. I just think we need to stand our ground a little bit more for what we know is functioning, obviously, but what we know is aesthetically important to that job. So it's a fine line, right, of how far to push the client.
Right. It is a fine line.
But they do need to be pushed. Some more than others.
They do. But I think I would appreciate a more, I won't say thoughtful, but a more kind of paused response from you in terms of listening to me about what the client wants and what is going to fit into their overall budget, because that is usually
I don't think budget's the case on that one, though, bud.
No. I understand that. But I'm saying I would appreciate a more measured approach from you when I am discussing changes to the plan, and perhaps at that point we can have just a better conversation about how to save things and why before you kind of get too frustrated. And I, in return, will go into meetings with a better understanding from you of what's most important to you in terms of aesthetics and function.
Okay.
Does that seem fair?
Yeah. No, I think it's all job based, and I do think
And client based.
it is client based. So for anyone listening, we do a range of projects where we may do a $60,000 job, but we may do a $400,000 job. And
in both instances, but you know what? In both instances, we still have to fight for things. And in both instances, there are still budgets.
So anytime that I understand the budgets, but anytime you fought for something, has it ever come back on you in a negative way? And I am speaking to the email that we just received like a half an hour ago, where you admittedly fought for quite a few things on one particular project and one particular wall, which was in the tens of thousands of dollars. And our client has come back multiple times to say, you, in fact, Samantha, were correct.
Right.
So it was worth fighting for. And I know it's not comfortable, and it's easy for me.
Well, it's not comfortable.
It's not.
I mean, let's get down to it.
It's easy for me because I don't have those face-to-faces with the
Right.
clients.
Right. Because ultimately, I want to please everybody. I want to please the client, and I want to please you. And so I am trying to strike a balance between everybody.
Yep. You are just caught in the middle.
I am. Well, I have a feeling that maybe once we get into our conversation with Sara Meier from Greenthumb Sam, which I'm super excited about.
Boise.
I know. By the way, that's the reference to Idaho in the beginning. Neil couldn't resist.
And we did a take because I was really enunciating Idaho, and it didn't come off.
Funny
right.
little joke that didn't work there.
Yeah.
But anyway, Sara is, a landscape designer as well, among other things. And I do think that she will, I don't know, maybe she'll give us some feedback. Maybe she can help us. Maybe she'll be our therapist today on this one. What do you think?
I hope so. We need it.
All right, we better get in her now. All right, well, we are super excited today to have Sara Meier here from Greenthumb Sam. Sara is a landscape designer and a certified horticulturalist, and if I might say, a kick-ass graphic artist.
That's how I would explain it.
Yeah, you very much are. As a matter of fact, we were looking through your Instagram page this morning, and I just said to Neil, I just went, oh, it's just amazing what she does. It's just beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind.
So inspiring.
Really, really so. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
All right, so my first question is a really important one.
Wow, you're jumping right in, like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got to get into it. So, Sara, What do Aaron Paul, Sarah Palin, and Ernest Hemingway all have in common?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I don't know. You tell me.
They're all from Boise.
Oh, hey.
Imagine that. Isn't Google wonderful?
Google is wonderful.
That's what I found in my Boise, little information check today.
Right.
I was all excited.
Yeah, we had to look it up. So you're from Boise, Idaho, or at least you're working there and living there now.
Living there now. I'm originally from the Seattle area and lived there my whole entire life. And then we moved here. This will be our 5th spring in Boise.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, what brought you to Boise? And is it different from Seattle? Well, of
Oh,
course
it is so different. At our last place where we were living, we were probably about 80 feet above sea level. And now we are at about 2,600 feet above sea level in basically in a desert.
A desert?
Yeah.
Oh, in the valley. Okay.
Like dry desert? So
you would consider this what's called a steppe region. So it's a high desert, and we receive about 11 inches of year annually.
11 inches of rain? Really?
Of rain. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, 11 inches of rain annually. It's crazy.
So, and Seattle's insane, right? I mean, they get a ton of rain.
Oh, so much more, like gray and rainy 9 months out of the year easily. So it was amazing moving here and being in the sunshine all the time. We thought we were on vacation for the first 3 months. No problem.
That's interesting because we were in Telluride. Remember, we ran into people on the trail hiking, and we were talking about how cold it is in Colorado, high up in the Rockies. And she was from New England, where we're from, actually from Massachusetts, where we live. And she said the difference, though, in the winter is striking because it's very gray here. Like we have entered the gray season, and if you
were to look outside our window, you would see that.
If you look at our Instagram account, you can almost tell, aside from the leaves not being on the trees, what time of year it is, because we'll have 20 posts in a row where it's just gray and dull. And she was talking about how sunny it is there in the winter, which makes a huge difference when it's cold out, obviously.
Oh, it's amazing. I had no idea that I probably had seasonal affective disorder for all of my life. And I never understood why I got so kind of sad and depressed when fall would roll around. I thought it was just because working retail that Christmas lasted for 3 months, but that wasn't the case. It was that it was just terribly bleak all the time.
Wow, that's interesting. And one thing I had seen in my research from Boise as well was I think it was 2017 through 2018. They said it was the fastest growing city in the country. Yes. And Idaho, yes, I think, is one of the fastest growing states.
Yes, it's beautiful here. And just for the reasons that you like Telluride, it is just gorgeous here. We have the foothills 10, 15 minutes away. We can do all this hiking and mountain biking, and there's a path along the green belt of the Boise River that you can bike on, and the mountains are a half hour, 45 minutes away. You can be skiing or snowboarding or sledding, just like that. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
That is amazing. So what brought you though from Seattle to Boise? I mean, it seems like a big move.
It's a huge move, and we didn't know anybody here, and we had no family here. My husband works in fisheries, so RFID tags that are in dogs and cats, that are like in your dog, they put those in fish, and they track fish all up and down rivers and streams and wherever the science needs to be recorded. And so he makes the detection systems and installs them and maintains them on the Columbia River, on dams, on tributaries. And he was doing this in Olympia, Washington, and the best company in the world who does that is here in Boise. And so they said, hey, want to come try us out?
Cool.
That is very cool. That is very cool.
Now, were you designing landscapes in Seattle at the time?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I started out designing in 2001. I had worked at a retail nursery. I kind of got poached from another nursery job that I was at. It was a Malone's Landscape and Nursery, and they had a full-on design build. So I used to roll up the designer's plans and tuck them away. And someone from Hayes had come in and like secret shopped me and knew that I knew all my plants and was like, hey, come on over. And it was a really nice big retail garden center nursery on the east side of Seattle. And the owner was very, very loving to me and said, in return of 2 years of your time, I will pay for you to go to school for environmental horticulture and landscape design. And I said, okay, because I'd already been going to school to get all my credits in. So I did that. And then I started my business in 2001, and I'd work full time. And then I'd go to people's houses after work and tell them what to do, tell them what plants to put here or there. Or if they were shopping at the nursery, I would, I'd say, okay, show me a picture or draw me a sketch. How many feet do we have to work with? And just go lay out, like a 30-foot section of their yard by grabbing whatever evergreen shrubs or deciduous shrubs or perennials and laying them out. And they're like, can you just follow me home? I'm like, sure, no problem.
That's
so I started
creepy.
in 2001. Yeah. Oh, it's totally creepy. And to think that I was, 19, 20 at the time was kind of, I look back now and I think, man, that was kind of sketchy, but they were always good people. Plant people are good people usually.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Samantha goes to meetings quite a bit, and I'm always telling her, let me know where you're going. Give me the address, answer your phone. Because, people, people.
That's why we have a shared Google Calendar. My husband can always see where I am.
There you go.
Right. Well, I do share the calendar, but Neil never looks at it.
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
That and email.
Minor details.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my downfall.
So I did notice, on your website that you had worked at the retail garden center, but you said that you were a plant buyer. And when I saw that, I thought, oh my God, dream job. So were you helping the nursery figure out what they were going to buy for the season?
Oh yeah. We would go to gift shows, trade shows, and do all
God.
of the giftware stuff. We had a huge Christmas display where we would do, say, like 20 themed Christmas trees a year, and I would light them. And I think, the first 2 or 3 years that I worked there, I ended up working there for 15 years, but the first 2 or 3 years, I got myself through the winter and not laid off by lighting wireframe deer and lighting Christmas trees and decorating. But yes, of course, I started out watering plants and sweeping and everything, but I was a perennial buyer for about 10 years, and I worked really closely with the shrub and tree manager, and I did all of the displays around the nursery. I did all of the signage, which is why my lettering is so good, because I was the quote unquote art department. I took care of the 2,500 gallon koi pond. That was my job, to test the water. And I learned all about irrigation and, balled and burlap and potting up bare root and how to deal with people and customers. And it was amazing.
Well, I have to go back to this plant buying thing, because I'm kind of obsessed with the idea of that. So
Samantha just wants to spend other people's money on plants. I think
I do.
It's the root of this.
I do.
It's amazing.
Right. So, but how would you know? Because this is something I've always been curious about. More so, I think, in the retail world, how would you kind of gauge what might be popular? Because, there's always new cultivars coming out of plants. So how would you sort of figure out what people wanted? Is it based on what you sold last year? Is it a hunch?
Well, can I add on to that question? Because I found that plants get hot for a while too. So I don't know if that's something you've experienced, which kind of blew my mind when I first figured that out. Plants trend.
Like shoes.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, like shoes. They definitely go hot. One of the biggest things was knowing what product you were going to get from what grower and what vendor and what it was going to look like on the bench. So being a tad bit OCD, I had a shade side and a sun side, and everything was organized alphabetically by the scientific or Latin name, so that whenever I had holes, I knew to fill in, more thalictrum or more heuchera. But knowing what my grower specialized in, like there was a particular grower called TNL who is still in business over there on the east side. And come fall, winter, spring, their heather was just absolutely amazing. And since it had beautiful color on it, you always knew that the 4-inch heather or the gallon heather would sell. So I'd order lots of that in. Anything that was great for containers if people were going to be kind of stuck inside. And then you get into the specialty growers who are doing the natives or the really cool rare woodlands or the grasses. And I don't know, I probably bought from 25, 30 different vendors. And sometimes, I'd get that availability on Friday, and it was just like reading plant porn, all those scientific names, right? Just the most exciting thing.
Oh, keep talking to me. Yes.
Yes. One
Shall I leave
flat
you
of
two
this.
alone?
I know.
God.
Yep, 3 flats of that. But it really worked out because I know what then I could put into displays at the front of the store and down the main walkway of the store that would sell. And it was those impulse items that if it looked really good in a display, and using all of those design tricks, right? Same color, different texture, same texture, different color. I just knew what would go. And there were some trucks too that you could just get on and just go to the racks. They'd just be lined, and go to the racks and just lift up a flat, lift up a flat, lift up a flat. And then at the end, you just pull it all off and put it on the ground and then have to go stock it.
Wow. So I guess that's really interesting. I never thought of it. I guess because I'm not coming to it from a retail point of view, or I'm coming to it from already having had a plan done and created. And that's why I know what I want. I guess it sounds silly to say, but I never really thought about the eye candy aspect of it for people coming into the retail centers, where it's really about creating those displays. It's not that the plant sells itself. It's like the display of the plant is what sells it.
Oh, and the 5 senses. So then I would be able to do these, 5x7, like plastic cards where I'd have the botanical name at the top and then the common name. And then, a little blurb about, oh, amazing, feel this. This feels so good. Or look at this sexy, chartreuse or purple foliage color that would pair well with this plant. And, people would read it and they'd start to get my little jokes and my sense of humor and be like, oh yeah, I gotta have 5 of those or 7 of these.
Of course. It's funny that you say that. One thing I wanted to kind of throw out there too. Well, now I remember what I was trying to say. When you were talking about the plant porn and kind of like looking through the catalogs, I don't think people who aren't plant people don't really realize how your heart starts to beat faster, and how, I literally start breathing heavier when I get plant catalogs in.
I totally get it.
This
it's
really is
total
porn.
rush. Yes, it is. It's a total rush.
So I was having trouble getting it out. I'm like, how do I word this? No, but I'm looking at some catalogs on my desk right now, and especially the ones that have pictures, because not all of them have pictures. So the ones that have pictures, when you start flipping through those images, it's just like my head explodes. So it's really exciting to finally get a plant person on this podcast, Neil.
Yes.
Because I have a feeling we're going to keep going back to the plants.
Well, and that was one reason why I got into design, because customers would come into the nursery and they'd have a plant list, and it would be just, just a straight Berberis Thunbergii. And I'd be like, oh, but wait, come here, look at this. We have all these different varieties, and you should try this variety because it's going to perform a lot better. It holds up, better. It looks awesome. And so I ended up just substituting, but keeping with the same theme. Being a designer, I totally understand that you don't want something. But if I knew that a certain shade maple wasn't going to do well in our climate, there up against the foothills, I would substitute something else out and say, oh no, you're going to be much happier with the fall color on this, or the winter color, or the maintenance on it. And that's what led me to say, you know what, I want to be a landscape designer, and I want to help people, homeowners, enjoy their spaces and work with them so that they're the ones who are going to get all the benefit out of it, and they're going to fall in love with it.
Well, just out of curiosity, I was wondering this earlier when you were talking about the move from Seattle to Boise. In terms of the difference in plants and climates, was there much of a transition that you had to make in terms of what worked in Seattle, given those wet, gray, I would assume maybe cooler conditions, versus working in Boise? Was there much of a transition that you had to make in your knowledge?
Oh, it was a huge transition.
Yeah, really.
And that's what got me in trouble. Because I wasn't going to start up my design business for a couple more years till the kids were in school. Like, this was going to be my fall. Both kids were going to be in school full time, and I could really go at it. But what happened was I started taking all of the local nursery classes. I started taking all the classes at the botanical garden that I could. I just finished up the Treasure Valley Gardening Certificate Program. And so learning the microclimate, we have these cold northwest desiccating winds in the winter. So broadleaf evergreens are just like non-existent here. You can't do that. So going to classes and asking questions really got me back into it. And, just like availabilities, once I started picking up all these new genus and species, I just couldn't stop. I just had to know all about them, and I had to read about them and learn about them and see them in use. And there's a great organization called Plant Select that puts out plants for the Intermountain West, for that steppe region that do well. And anything that they put out, I was on their website, I bought their book, Pretty Tough Plants, and I couldn't stop learning about it. And now I've got my favorites that do really well here and hold up well.
What zone are you?
So this was funny. When we moved here, my addiction is Japanese maples. So at one point in my life, I had 34 different kinds.
Wow.
That and peonies, right? That and peonies.
Yeah. I love peonies. Yeah. Peonies, perennials, Japanese maples. But I think we brought probably about 20 of them with us to Boise in containers. That first winter of 2016, and this is going back to zones eventually, we got down to negative 12 degrees and everybody referred to it as Snowmageddon. Oh, I put them up against the house. I insulated them. When it snowed, I got snow on top of them, but I lost all but 2.
Oh, wow.
And I was just, I was distraught. So USDA says we're a zone 7, and that's a lie. Cause right, that's 0 to 10 degrees. We're probably a 6 or a 5 here. Easily.
Sounds 5-ish, because I know we are, 6B now, I think. But I never ever designed for 6. I designed for 5. And if I have something in that's 6, then I know I'm taking a chance. I feel like I'm taking a chance. So I'll put things maybe in a little bit more of a protected spot. Mm-hmm. But, and I mean, I could be kind of hearkening back to my childhood when we were clearly zone 5. And I know it has warmed up here. I can't deny that, but I definitely designed for 5s just to be on the safe side.
Well, even that, I mean, something may do well for 10 years and then it might be that one season where
winter,
it gets toasted.
That takes it out.
Yep.
Yeah. That's why I always tell Neil I have so much harder of a job than him because he builds, I mean, granted the stones are heavy, but he builds with stone and it's there. It doesn't move. It's there and it stays.
It's not going to die on you and make your customer really sad and depressed.
It's not going to die. We're not going to have an issue with voles like we have right now.
As long as my stuff's on a good footing, I'm usually pretty good.
Must be nice, that easy life you have.
Easy. It is easy. Let me tell you.
You're a matchmaker, Samantha. That's what you are.
And so I also saw on your website, and I just thought this was interesting, that you were working as a gardener for a while. I'm not sure if you're still doing that, but I wanted you to talk about that experience a little bit, because before I went back to school for landscape architecture, or I guess during my first year, I worked as an estate gardener. And I always tell people I learned more in that summer of gardening than I really ever learned in school. Not to say school didn't teach me things, because it did, but that hands-on understanding of what plants do. And I mean, this is particular to understanding plants. That gardening experience completely formed who I am and how I look at plants. So I just wanted to kind of hear about your work as a gardener.
Yes. So I've had about 3 clients who were special enough for me to work with them in the gardening sense, because monetarily I can make more money doing the design and the consultation than the physical work. But I think that it's so important for any designer, anyone who's putting in landscapes, to know what the maintenance aspect of the plants is going to be.
Yes.
I think it's super important. So, having my side business, which was called Lunaria Landscape Design, by the way. So Lunaria is the botanical name for money plant, right?
Oh,
I thought I was really funny when I was 19. I had a great set of clients on Tiger Mountain in Issaquah, Washington, that had a woodland garden, and knowing how to deal with the leaves off of the big leaf maples on top of all of those perennials, and working in the mud and the muck and the rain was really informative. And then I had another client who my husband worked with me on this job over the years, and he had built a pretty large garden, had it installed on 2 acres, and it was double file viburnum planted like 3 feet center to center, and Stewartia pseudocamellia planted 8 to 10 feet center to center, lining a driveway with strawberry bushes, Arbutus unido in between them, 4 feet center to center. And I remember getting a phone call from him, and he said, so-and-so gave me your name, and I know you don't do gardening, but I've had this landscape installed about 5-7 years ago, and the maintenance is just getting to be way too much on it. It's not something that I can do. And I just couldn't bear the thought of someone going in after seeing the place and hedge trimming everything, because there were such beautiful plants. They were gorgeous. So we worked on that property for probably 3 or 4 years before he sold it and downsized. And that was super informative for me, for knowing how to space plants appropriately on a plan and what type of maintenance they would need. And then we had the opportunity to move down to Olympia, Washington, which we were up here, and you come down and around to the Sound. And I was pregnant with my second child, and I just needed something to get out of the house, because the nursery had closed down. We had had the recession, and it was a family that owned it, and one of the owners had passed away, and the wife couldn't keep it going. So we'd moved down to Olympia, and I just, on a whim, was like, man, I just need to be outside working with my hands, doing something, because I miss that physical aspect of the job so much. So I threw up an ad on Craigslist for rhododendron pruning and Japanese maple pruning, which is kind of a specialty in that area, you know. And someone caught my ad, looked it up, and called me, and happened to be that he lived on 2 acres of fully designed Japanese garden. And in that area, Taylor Shellfish, the oyster farm, is really, really big. And it was one of the sisters of Taylor Shellfish that had that house and had this garden design, and 25,000 gallon koi pond and Zen rock garden. And the rock work and the woodwork and just the craftsmanship of this whole stream through the middle of it was just amazing. And to be able to go on my time, prune, leave a pile, and have the homeowner or whoever else he hired come and pick up behind me was just like, you know, the most freeing thing. And just being out, I didn't wear headphones, nothing like that. It was me and my folding pruning saw, my loppers, and my Felco number 6s, and just to go and let it fall or rake it into a pile and then move on to the next thing. Every time I drive down that long driveway, it was just the happiest thing for me. So yeah, I love estate gardening and gardening for people, and I still prune fruit trees and maples for special clients.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. I think I tell Neil, you know, a few times every season, because when we started, so we do offer gardening services. So we design, build, and then we do gardening services for specific clients, kind of like you're saying. So especially there's projects that are particularly important to me, and how I know it's going to take them a few years to develop into the grand scheme of what my vision was. So, you know, to be able to still stay on a property after the installation has been done has been just amazing for me, and has made me so much better at what I do, because 100% I can see where my mistakes were and I can see where my successes were, and I can just constantly be bringing that to the next project. But the idea of being able to take care of the plants, and I don't know if it's just because at heart I'm kind of a caretaker and I like taking care of things, but you're right, that physical aspect, I miss it so much. I'm going to cry. But of being able to kind of constantly be in the garden and be tending it, not controlling it, because I definitely don't control my gardens, but to tend it and manage it and still feel like you are a part of the process. It's definitely something that I really miss. And, you know, I try to get out there whenever I can, but, you know, there's only so many hours in the day these days.
That's right. There's so much going on. Yeah, it's a whole other level of education when you can be in what you have designed or planted. It's just wonderful.
It is. It is.
She needs to be friends with Paul Camara.
Oh,
Because he was, I think, guest 2 we had.
right.
He loves Japanese maples. He has a collection of them. And it sounds like you're right on par with him with pruning. He just absolutely loves it. And the specialty pruning, that sort of thing.
Plus, he's really nice.
He's really nice. He's really nice. I'm interested in you making the move. So you got your start working at the garden center, which is very similar to my start. And I'm going into this
and
because
mine, actually.
Yeah, both of you.
Yeah, I'm interested in that because I've had a few people recently even reach out. One was somebody who was in his mid-30s and wanted to start, and he was asking me if I thought he was too old, which I said absolutely not. If this is what you want to do and you're passionate about. But other people have asked me how I got my start. And I did say, you know, I went to school for this, landscape architecture. I worked in a firm, but I did not know my plant material. That's why I actually went on the weekends on a Saturday and Sunday to work in a nursery that was more based on retail, where I had that client interaction like you were talking about, where people would come in with a picture and boy, talk about getting yourself in shape with plants. Someone brings in something with some dimensions and you have to walk them around and you have that interaction and that sales experience. And it was priceless for me. So I get into that just because if people are listening and they want to know really how to acquire the knowledge, there's nothing like that hands-on experience. But through go ahead.
Yeah, that's the first thing I tell people. I get a lot of people who want kind of a mentoring relationship with me, and they want to know, so what should I do? And that's the first thing I tell them is, even if it's seasonal, even if it's through the busy part of the season, just go get a job at a nursery or a garden center, and you are going to learn more in those few months than you would even ever hope to know in your lifetime, because you have to solve problems right then and there on your feet. And you learn all the plants, you learn all the problems with the plants, because people bring in the leaves in the bag,
true, yeah.
and what's wrong with this, what's this pest. And you learn how to also help people gain some confidence in themselves and what they're doing with the plants. So yeah, that's always my biggest number one, is go work at a garden center, because you will learn so much.
Yeah, for sure. And even like through there, I was lucky where they did their own installs, but it was on the border of Rhode Island and Massachusetts, where they didn't go into Rhode Island. So they ended up giving me those clients. So now I was able to design for those people and eventually start building for those people. So that's how we really got our start. But I'm interested in your experience, because it seems like you had that and you were developing that, and then you made the big move. So how did you get yourself known where you are here in Boise? How does that process begin?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
That is a good question. So when I was in the Seattle area in Issaquah, we were on the east side, right? We had Microsoft and Amazon and Intel not far away. And I told the owner, I said, we need to be online. We need to have a social media presence, because people aren't necessarily going to go out looking for things. They expect it to show up in their hand now. So I started, a Twitter account for the nursery, and I started Facebook, because this was before Instagram. So I saw how that did. I'd post a plant a day that we had in that I wanted to highlight that looked fabulous off the truck, and post it in a display. And that got people coming in.
Nice.
So when I was there, the nursery would hand out my card. Here in Boise, making the transition, I went to these classes at nurseries, and at one nursery in particular, it's a landscape architect designer who is the owner, and her husband has a company on the side installing. And based on the questions that I was asking about the native plants and stuff, she's like, let's chat just a little bit more, what's going on with you? So if she has extra work, she sends it my way.
Nice.
I took the Treasure Valley, certificate program, and even classes before that, they had said, well, based on the questions you're asking, what's your background? Would you teach for us?
Oh, nice.
And so, yeah, making myself kind of, I don't want to say an expert in the area, but I mean, someone that people can go to and feel comfortable going to, has been how I have established my presence here. And really, Instagram was the biggest thing. When I found out that there were other people all over the world who still did hand drafting and drawing, I was just floored. And I thought, well, cool, I can really talk about horticulture and plants, because that's my passion and that's what I like. But to see other designers designing and drawing, and I would look at their pictures and say, oh, well, that's a great placement of a tree, or oh, I really like how that path curves around that direction, and think about how I would maybe lay out something differently, or how I would look at it differently versus how they would look at it. It was just super exciting for me. So I started on Instagram, and I think I'm a really good step in between a large firm. If people just need to know, like when they come into a nursery, what tree to plant in this spot to give them shade, and then what plants can accompany it. It's just a really nice in-between step where they can still DIY it if they want to. And then the bigger plans, if they need to hand them off to a landscape contractor, then they can.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that aspect of your business a little bit more, but as kind of a precursor to that, I would love to learn more about the name Greenthumb Sam, because I understand Sam came from your grandfather. So I'm trying to figure out how he got Sam out of Sara. So I'm sure that there is a nice story there.
Oh, there's a story, and it's kind of cheesy, but
I love it. Go.
Yes, my grandpa on my mom's side has always called me Sam. I'm the only granddaughter, and I have 2 boy cousins, so there's only 3 of it, Jason, Brad, and Sam. And to this day, he will not call me anything other than Sam. That was my initials. Sara Ann Myers was my maiden name, and then I married a Meier, in which the judge who married us, when we went to her chambers in downtown Seattle, she's like, "I cannot marry you guys. This is illegal." And we're like, we're like 23 and big eyes. I'm like, "Why?" And she says, "Because you're related somewhere down the line, obviously." And my husband said, "Don't change your name to Meier because no one will ever be able to spell it or pronounce it." And he was right. But when we moved here, I had looked up the name Lunaria, and there is a garden grant fund. So someone else who thought that was really punny, right? So I had to change my name, and I figured, and this is all credit to my husband. He's like, if and when you decide to retire, if you want to sell your business, Greenthumb Sam can cover maintenance, design, installation. It's a big name. It could cover anything. And I thought, you know what? That's good. So that's how we ended up with Greenthumb Sam.
It's a great tag, on Instagram as well.
Yeah,
It just like you said, it can encompass all elements of what you do.
But you said,
that's him. He's smart. He's always been my biggest supporter.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think you mentioned on your website though that your grandfather was an avid gardener as well.
Oh yeah. Yes, both sides. But that's my grandpa Clark. He had a couple of acres, and he always had this forested part of his property where he built a fort for his grandkids. That was really cool. He had worked at Weyerhaeuser and was a mechanical engineer, but he had what was called the pipeline or the gas line that ran through his property, and you couldn't build anything solid on it. So he always had a huge veggie garden, and then he'd have his dahlias and everything as well. So it was always fun to just go spend time with him. And then my other set of grandparents, they had more formal gardens. They had cutting gardens and veggie gardens and a koi pond and a rockery. And so growing up, I was an only child for 9 years. So going to my grandparents' house for me was like going to Disneyland, just being able to play outside all day and kind of forage and eat whatever you could find in the garden and play with flowers and put together bouquets. So that was great.
Sounds amazing. I think, and the reason I'm kind of going into it is because I always sort of wonder if this gardening bug kind of runs in the blood, in people's blood. So for example, my dad, who I did not grow up with, he lived actually across the country, but he was an avid gardener, and he was really known for his lemon trees and his tomatoes. And so the family that I did grow up with, they really weren't gardeners at all. And so I kind of have always wondered, well, where did this come from? And I feel like there's got to be something in our DNA that comes to us from our family.
I think so. My uncle has a place in the south end of Boston, but he resides now in Provincetown at the tip of the Cape. And he is oh gosh, it's probably been 15 years now that he's been there, but he started out with pretty much a blank lot. And every time I see pictures that he posts on Facebook, he has just been hoarding. Either he's ordered tons and tons of bulbs and he's putting them in, or, it's 50 different kinds of iris that he's putting in. And yeah, it runs in the family for sure.
I love that. Makes me feel like maybe it's not so much of an addiction as something that you just can't.
No,
you
it's a total addiction. It's don't kid yourself.
No,
it's
really?
a total addiction. Yeah.
I always say to Neil, I would rather have plants than anything else in the world. I don't care about clothes. I don't care about jewelry. I do like shoes. I'll admit I do like shoes, but I won't spend my money on
I can contest to that. She has some of the same shirts and sweatshirts, and we've been together for 15 years that she had 15 years ago.
I would rather spend money on plants too. I totally get you, Samantha.
Crazy kids.
I know.
I really want to get into, well, there's a lot. I'm really interested in your work process and who you're producing these plans for. So you have the plans that are going to the DIY person, which I have to say, the people that you know, these DIY people, are like on another level from what I've seen. Some of the stuff they've produced, I'm really impressed by it. And that of handing off a set of plans to a landscape contractor. Are you involved through that process on either or both ends once you hand those plans off, should things come up?
Yes. So not as much as I would like to be with the contractors. That's something I would really like to do in the next year, is establish, I wouldn't say better, but relationships with the contractors in my area. I've got about a handful that I recommend that I really like, but everyone is so busy.
Okay.
So because the growth here is just exponential. So when I have my clients, because I do the digital scans of the plans, and I'll have them email them to the contractors to bid. But then the contractor will say, well, we're a year out, or we're a year and a half out. And they just get so, kind of discouraged.
Okay.
So at one point in time when I was going to school and had finished, and my husband was going to school, he was installing plans for me, and that was wonderful. And then at one point he had a cave experience like Samantha did. We got stuck in the ape caves. Right around the Mount St. Helens area. And he said, I'm not walking around yards anymore. I'm not doing yards anymore. I'm going to do the big picture, fishery and forestry.
Okay.
So yeah, I would like more relationships, but I do check back in, and I have started project management, offering that to clients. So there was one couple this year that I worked with that they had hired a contractor on their own, and they would have me over, and I would go check the work and say, move this or do that, or what about if we do it this way? And then with the clients themselves, I'm terrible about this, but I'm definitely available for texts or emails at any time, or a phone call. Like the nursery has ordered in.
We're gonna talk about that.
It's hard not to be. I get it.
Yeah, they will say, like the nursery ordered in this other grass, even though we had specified, and I'll be like, oh, no, you don't want that one because it will die out over the next 2 or 3 years. Make sure that you can return it, because that you cannot have that grass. You're going to have a poor experience, and I don't want them to fail. So I try to give them as much information as they possibly can have or need, so that they will have success in what they're doing.
Yeah. So I would imagine on the planting end, as in terms of project management, placing the plants, I think would be a huge asset for these people, even the contractors. And then, because it would be really difficult. And I actually don't like placing the plants when she's not there. Sometimes I have to. I'm so paranoid. I'm not gonna get the spacing right. There is fluctuation. I don't know what you find, that, it's not a planting plan is, we're pretty much on point, but we have to move things and shift things left and right.
There's no doubt about it.
And God, it'd be really difficult, I think, to hand that off to somebody else and not get that spacing right, which is so important.
Right. It is, it's definitely taking like your baby, or my baby, because I've spent so much time on these, and I've thought through everything you can possibly think through, working through the problems, and then handing it off and saying, okay, I hope for the best. Here you go. Yeah. So I always tell them, if you have questions, just let me know, because I'd rather know you're having a good time and you're enjoying it, so you enjoy it in the future and you enjoy the space in the future than failing. And I always give people the blur. Do you guys ever do the blur, Samantha?
I don't know
where you stand back once you have placed something. And this was really big in setting up displays too, where you stand back and you fuzz your eyes, you blur them, you squint them. And so you can see all the shapes and the forms and the light and the dark values come together. And that makes it easier to kind of discern the composition and know if you got to shift something a little this way or a little that way.
Oh, the blur.
See, I thought this was just a sales tactic to make you look like superior. That's pretty cool. I like that.
But let's backtrack a little bit in terms of your process, because you will offer your clients either consultations, which is sort of one aspect and one price point, and then you will do kind of master planning for them. So what does it mean to do a consultation?
So I always have everybody start out with a consultation no matter what, because even if it turns into a plan, you guys know just as well as I do, you're kind of hiring them or seeing if you want to work with them on a big project. Because there's some people who could care less. They just want some curb appeal. And so, those are the clients that are going to get really tough plants that are bulletproof. And that might just be an hour to 3 hour consultation where you give them all the information they need, the plants, the layout, where they're going to buy them from, what type of rock they're going to use, what rock yard they're going to go to for that rock. So people who want to knock something out, but they don't need it measured and to scale. And then there's other people like my father, who is an engineer, who our windowsills in our house weren't finished for years because everything had to be just perfect, right? Just level. Yeah. So measured and to scale, I think is great for people who are like, well, if I put down a rock border and you don't specify that it's exactly to be 6 inches or a foot wide, what if I'm out there and I make it 3 feet? Like they'll just obsess over every little detail. So, or if I have an idea that I'm like, oh, this would be a really fun space to work with, like this last one that I just presented, there were so many different ways you could lay out the front entry or the back entry, but it was one of those things that needed the dedication of time to sit down and work through it and to come up with those different ideas to kind of really make sure that they flowed well and they looked right. And so I knew that that was one that I wanted to do a plan for, because coming up with the best solution for them and how it should flow for design and form and function, that needed to be something that was devoted more than a 2-hour consultation to.
So let me wrap my head around this, because it's just a little, it's different from how we work. So I'm curious about the consultation, because I was doing, when we first started, I would do consultations for people, but then I just realized for me that was taking away from time that I needed to put towards the larger project. So your consultation, that's a paid service, I would assume, right? And so you will then move from consultation to more of a, like I said, a master plan based on the complexity of the design, it sounds like. And then certainly if it's going to go to a contractor, I'm sure you move on to that master plan, kind of drafted plan. But then some of your DIY clients also just need more specifics from you to get the plan right. Is that what you're...
It sounds a lot like Sarah Bendrick when we talked with her. I feel like her process was very similar to yours, Sarah.
Hers did sound similar after listening. Yeah, after listening to hers. It really just depends on what they need. And I also offer an intermediate step where if they're like, oh yeah, that hour to 2 consultation, which I just charge hourly and have them pay on the spot. If they're like, okay, well, that all sounds great, but man, I would love it if you could link me to those Felco pruners. So they're not spending the time Googling everything. I would love it if you could link me to those Felco pruners, or if you could put together in your notes these specific plants that you're recommending. So I'll do a mid to, which I call refined notes, where everything is just laid out very plain, that they could spend a little bit more time on, but don't have to go with the full big plan.
What happens when you meet somebody and you know right away you don't want to work with them? But have you ever had this and they want to work with you?
That's a good question.
Because we have a breakup letter.
Well, yeah, now it's a breakup email. But I used to.
Oh, I want one of those.
Now it's an email. Yes, where I just, personally, I'll just say thank you so much. Your yard is beautiful. But I just don't think that we're a right fit or something to that effect.
So
I avoid the face-to-face or the phone call. I just go right to email.
How do you do it, Sarah?
So that's a really good question. And I will just steer them into, no, I don't think you need a plan. There is one particular instance in this area where I have done a plan for somebody and I have specific materials for walkways and the size of pavers to walk up to the front door. and then it had been done differently. And I have the client saying, come stop by, walk these pavers with me up to the front door. Doesn't this feel weird? You have to kind of double step here. And I'm like, yes, because these were not poured at the measurements that I had. This is why you got a plan. So it was very, very specific. And then like the walkway, I wanted crushed rock, low budget. I wanted crushed rock to get around to the back of the house. And it was more of this like pumicey stone that was very light, almost like a vermiculite or a perlite. And so when you would walk in it, you would just sink. And he's like, I don't like this. And I'm like, yes, this is what I told you to get rid of. This is terrible. And so in instances like that, it's like, if they want more help, I say, well, you can hire me again if you need, but you have to pay for that, right? You have went against my wishes and best practices, and I need to be paid for that time. And so I say, if they're not willing to do that, I said, okay, well, I think you need to find somebody else who maybe is better at communicating with you, or maybe that you feel more comfortable with working with to get the desired outcome that you want. But then I also say, like, don't put my name on this, because this is not what right. This is not my product right here.
Right. Well, along those same lines, we wanted to ask you, because we've been having a little bit of a disagreement lately. Well, just so you know, these podcasts usually turn into a therapy session at some point between Neil and I.
Yes.
So we've been having a bit of a disagreement lately.
Which one?
There's so many. Dealing with when clients want to change things in your design that are really important. So at what point do you fight for them? And I'm talking about clients you have a good relationship with, that you're in the design process with, but they're either concerned about budget or use or how something's going to look.
Maintenance,
that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you deal with clients when they want to change something that is really important?
Well, that's a really hard one, because number one, it's just built into me that I want to be a people pleaser. And if I like the client, I feel like I have, more of a personal relationship with them. But if I really feel a certain way about a plant or a placement or the flow of a path, I will just straight up say, I wouldn't recommend it, because I don't think that you're going to be happy with the outcome. And I think that the outcome that you're looking for, this is the way to do it. And this will be the best way to do it. And if they disagree, I say, if you don't like it, you can't bring it back to me that you don't like it that way, because you went out on your own and you decided what to do.
Yeah.
I like it. Firm, but friendly.
Yeah. But it's been kind of interesting lately, though, because there's been a few things that Samantha was willing, not that she thought it was the right decision our clients were making, but she was willing to go that route. And I was a little, I don't have to deal with the client, so it's easy for me to say, Samantha, no, they absolutely can't do this. Come on, what are we doing? But I kind of made my case, and I think ultimately they stuck with what I wanted. So I think with experience, we're getting a little more bold when it comes to that. Do you not think so? She's writing stuff down, and she looked out the window, Sarah, and I'm thinking that there's a fire or something, because our kids are out there actually playing around the fire pit.
Yeah, they're playing with fire. That's why you thought
I thought something was really, really wrong.
I can't see what could go wrong with children playing with a fire pit that we can't see. There seems to be nothing wrong with that.
Nothing.
7 and 9, very responsible.
Yeah, see, mine are 9 and 6, so I get
that's right. They're very similar in age to ours.
How are you juggling that right now?
This has been insane, because like I said, I have been looking forward to this fall in particular.
Yeah.
Fall, winter of 2020, because they would both be in school full time and I would be able to do my thing.
That's right. 6. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But Boise, or the school district that we are in currently, they can't decide what they're doing. And so these last 2 weeks, they have had all of the kids in school full time. So these last 2 weeks, I've been getting tons of stuff done, but cases are just rising. And I mean, in the beginning, it was just one of those things where I just had to throw my hands up and go, this just is how it is.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm kind of a black and white person. It's like, I'm all work or I'm all mom. And when we decided to have children, when we were moving into that phase, and I was going to have my daughter, I was like so naive and like, oh, I'll totally be able to consult and draw and do all these things. It'll be no problem. And I didn't understand how much work a baby or kids were. And so it was kind of a black or white proposition, which is why when we moved down to Olympia, that was so great that I could get that estate gardening job, or that gentleman found me, because it was such a great release. So yeah, this has just been, you just have to throw your hands up and go, it is what it is. And I'm so, I just want to give you so much props for doing the homeschool thing, because holy smokes, I can teach adults about design and plants all day, but man, they look at me and go, I don't want to read this. I don't want to do this paragraph. And
yeah,
it's like, especially when people listen to you, right? When you're a professional and people listen to you because your opinion matters and your experience matters. These kids could care less. They don't care. They don't care.
Well, my secret weapon, I'm sorry, Neil. My secret weapon is
what do I not know?
Do you want me to call your father right now?
And I hate having to play that role. But
my husband hates that too. I'm always like, should we call Dad? Should we call Dad and talk to him about this?
It's all I've got.
No.
Sarah, it's all I've got. Like, it's all I've got. I can't really take things away from them because they don't have video games. They don't have anything like that. Their thing is playing outside and building stuff. So I can't take that away. From them. So all I've got is threatening some sort of retribution from their father.
Right. Mine have video games now, so that's the only thing I can take away.
I think that probably always works. Yes. It's a role that I never asked for. And I don't even know why it works, because I'm not a huge intimidating person, but I'll talk sternly.
Oh no, you've got the voice.
I guess
you've got the voice.
Whip out the dad voice.
Yeah, the dad voice. But I just don't have the octave in my voice to get there.
Well, right. And I think sometimes they're around us so much that it's like, yeah, whatever that lady says, sure.
Right.
Whatever.
Right. Yeah, and once they know, last year when it started in the spring, very quickly, once they were home, they kind of caught on to us, where we weren't prepared, and they kind of sensed that, and they knew. So like a few weeks into it, we were just like, whatever, you're done with school. It's over. So,
literally, I stopped. I can't, I'm sorry. Like, we'll pick it up in the fall, thinking we'll pick it up in the fall and they'll get caught up and everybody's going to be in the same spot. So this won't be a problem. I never anticipated actually homeschooling them this year, but
I think we just kind of slowed down, and unfortunately, I think the world, in a way, at least here, everything's kind of just slowed down a little bit. So we're just
well, at least now cruising. We all have an excuse for, because let's admit it, as designers, these projects take a long time. It takes a long time. And when you're managing multiple clients, it's a process and it just takes time. But at least now we can all say, sorry, COVID, slowing me down.
Right.
What can I do? The kids are home. What can I do?
Plans changed.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things for me is like when I'm lettering a plan, I do that all in one chunk so that the handwriting is all cohesive. It's not something I can do in 10-minute sections, because it's like once I get that flow going, I have to finish that piece. I can't come back to it later, or the height of the lettering will be a little bit off. So
that's interesting. When I watch your videos, I kind of get lost in them. It's very it has like a kind of a meditative kind of feel. It's just, I don't know, it's just very graceful the way you do it, and I'm in awe of that. Do you get into a space when you're coloring or lettering where it's somewhat liberating, or how does that feel for you when you're in that moment?
Oh, I put on music. I have my water ready. I have my sparkling water ready, and I just get into a groove and I just go. And it's one of my favorite things, which is why sometimes I feel, I don't want to say bad, but sometimes I feel weird about charging people for what I do, because it is so absolutely enjoyable for me. It's like a form of therapy or yoga, just the practice of it, just the kind of meditative quality of it.
Well, I wanted to ask you, and I think I kind of have a sense of your answer, but why stick with the hand rendering and the hand graphics and the handwriting, which I am so insanely jealous of the quality of your writing. It's like, it's embarrassing how jealous I am of you because my handwriting, even when I try to do that nice landscape architecture capitals, it's pitiful.
And our handwriting is getting worse, you and I.
I know. So why?
Oh, Neil, I loved yours on that post that you did. I loved that.
Well,
That
I was
looked so
trying.
artistic.
Yeah, no, it just comes to you.
My
quiet.
No. But my everyday handwriting, it's getting to the point, I don't know if this is with age, where I can't read some of the things I'm writing, which is
Whatever.
really not cool.
I don't want to hear from you. So why stick with the hand rendering graphics? What for you is special about that? Or why not move to CAD where you can make changes so much easier and that sort of thing? I'd love to hear you talk about that.
All right. So when I went to school for environmental horticulture with an emphasis in landscape design at South Seattle College, for whatever reason, it wasn't in their budget to get the CAD program. We had training in it, but it was an off-brand program, which was fine. And for what I was doing, I think I was 20 or so. I had come home and my husband had bought a 6-foot long drafting table from Boeing Surplus Supply. And he had painted the base for me and it had the wooden top. And we had our little apartment, which is just a 2-bedroom apartment on the Green River. And being able to just do something, I just feel like my mind and hand are just so connected that just being able to go in and get down a couple of ideas and being able to hand them off to a client right away, like when I was working at the nursery, was the way for me to do it. Also, there was no desire for me to be in front of a computer dragging and dropping symbols. Yes, I would like it for the estimating and the bidding. It would save a lot of time, I'm not going to lie, but it is going to take me a lot of time on the front end to learn that program too. Like I started talking to Pierce when she started using Dynascape, and it looks very appealing to me, but it's like, if I could have a combination of Morpholio Trace and the Dynascape program where I could put in my own graphics and then be able to manipulate them or spin them so they didn't all look the same. Mm-hmm. I think you lose a lot of the personality when it's so uniform. And for me, it's a lot of feeling that I put into these plans because I'm picking specific plants because I think that they tie into either that genius loci, the feeling of the space, or the particular client, or I know that plant and I want them to love that plant like I do. And it just seems kind of impersonal to me to drag and drop those symbols. And so for me, I have just always stayed with the hand because I've got 3 drafting tables. So moving projects around, it can be challenging at times, but I've got my flat file where I can slide stuff in. And yeah, so there might come a point in time when I decide to do that, but I still love what I do and I still have control over my hand. Like the carpal tunnel isn't so bad. So I think it would take more time to learn it up front. And I don't want to take time away from what I can still do physically with my body. Maybe I'll want to sit in front of a computer when I get a little bit older and do that, but not right now.
Yeah, that's a great point, sitting in front of the computer. That just really resonated with me, what you said, because one of my notes here was with a question mark. Does hand rendering make it more of a personable experience? And I think
for her clients,
for your clients. And I feel like your renderings say a lot more than a CAD drawing, and we do CAD work. But I also think, with CAD, it can be very stifling. I think we had a post recently where, and somebody was writing back to me on it, and it was perfect because I've had that experience many times where if I have an idea and I go straight to CAD, forget it. I get sucked into what I call the Autocad Vortex, and I just go down the rabbit hole of trying to make this thing work, and it just gets worse and worse and worse, where if I could just take a step back, and you're much better at this than I am, Samantha.
Well, that's because you come up with an idea before you've even seen the site or know anything about the client. Yes, and then you'll jump into CAD and be like, what do you think of this? I'm like, whoa, that's not where we're going.
But that experience of, like you said, that mind to hand experience of just kind of just getting it all out on paper is very freeing and liberating versus the computer experience.
I would agree. And I think it's something I can have control over. I can see it in my mind and I can see it how it should be laid out. And this kind of goes back to my sign making days at the nursery too. Like, I have a personality for a plant. I know what the botanical name is. I know what the common name is. I know what I want that to look like across the paper to give it feeling. And I know what I want that handwritten description to look like to give it feeling and emotion. And it's just like receiving a typed letter in the mail or a handwritten letter in the mail. There's just so much more warmth to it. And yeah, you're not stifled. There is creativity that you can bring to that.
Well, I think you just hit the word emotion. That is exactly what it is. You're able to bring emotion to a plan view drawing, which is kind of insane when you think about it. It's just a piece of paper.
It doesn't seem so flat.
It's not
though.
a 3D. It's not even a 3D rendering. But you are able to bring a massive amount of emotion through your graphics and your color choices. It's beautiful. It's amazing.
Thank you. Well, I have to just pull back on that just a little bit and point to something yesterday. I went and presented the plan that I have been posting a lot about, the Cali residents. And at our preliminary plan meeting, the husband was like, well, what do you do with this flimsy? What do you do with this trace paper? And I'm like, oh, well, I use that to make the final design. And then I thought about it and it's like, what do I do with that? I put it in my flat file. I hold on to it for a couple of years and then I throw it away. So because the final's produced, right? There's our end result. Good. We're good to go. Yesterday, what I did was I gave them all of the flimsies, all of the different little preliminary sketches that I had done. So, I mean, sheets and sheets of trace paper, flimsy paper. And I even gave them, I'll take a big, rip off a big piece and I'll lay it out and figure out how I want to lay out the piece of the yard and where I want the plant keys to go in and my design program and so that I have like a dry run, right? So that I know where to leave space in my plan and what to draw in. And I also gave them those. And they were just so grateful and honored. And they said, we were thinking about doing a whole wall where we frame these pieces and then we frame your plan. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that is just, I wanted to hug them. I couldn't right now, but I wanted to hug them because people will say, oh, that's cool. But to have someone who had kind of that emotional connection to it and wanted to keep it and honor it was just like, wow, this is really it was really validating and made me feel really good. And I thought, well, that's way better than me sticking it in the flat file and throwing it away 2 or 3 years from now. Yeah, those were fun ideas. Great. Okay, here we go.
Right. So was it almost a relief to be able to give it to them because you didn't have to feel guilty about the fact that you put all this time in and now it's just in a drawer for nobody to really think about again? Was it almost kind of a relief to be able to give it to them? So now it's up to them to do what they will?
It was very freeing. And at the same time, I said, I'm going to keep the base map because that's when I go and I take all my measurements and do the site analysis. I'm going to keep the base map, but you guys let me know if when I go to the print shop next time, if you want a copy of this in a digital scan, because I will email it to you so you can see everything that is existing right now if you need to work around it. And I kept my original vellum copy, and I just always keep my vellum because in case I need to run more plans further on or anything, I do that. But I only took those 2 things away and I left everything else. And it was kind of like, not a hoarder type situation, because I'm sure my kids at some point in time when I die are going to be like, oh my gosh, what do we do with 20, at this point, it's like 20 years of drawings. What do we do with all of these?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm sure too, for them, the homeowner to get all those layers of, all those layers of thoughts, those physical layers. Yeah. I'm sure at that moment they realized, wow, you really put all this time and care into it. And you're not going to get that with the AutoCAD layers like we do. I guess it just looks like we spit something out, whereas your process, they can really see what went into it. That's pretty amazing.
For the record, I'm not just spitting things out.
I
just feel like I have to throw it out there. I've got my trace paper. I do.
Right, but they may not, our customers may not realize that because of what you're giving them. We have these we have these layers in CAD where she has these physical layers of trace on top of trace. It's pretty cool.
Right. It is.
Right. And yeah, and that's one thing that I do when I sit down at my meetings, at my preliminary meeting, and then at the final, I say, okay, so we started out with the base map. This has all the measurements and the site analysis on it. And then, as you know, we moved to the flimsies, and this was all of our ideas for preliminary plans and how we could lay it out. And then here we move on to the vellum. And so I start this with pencil, and then I finish it in pen. So this is the final copy. And then I take this to the print shop and I get it printed, and I also have it scanned, and I have them reduced to 8.5 by 11 too, so that if they're at a nursery or they're at a rock yard, they can carry around a little piece of paper with the plan and the plant list on it instead of having the big plan. And then I say, and here are your black and white working copies, which I usually give 2 to 3 of those. And then I say, and here is your final rendered plan.
Nice.
And there's nothing like that feeling when they're like, oh,
yes. Right.
And especially when it's not a color copy of the rendered plan, because I'll usually do mini layers like the white pen that I put on there, the chalk pastels, and then the colored pencil, and then the marker. So you can physically touch it, and it's got texture and feeling to it. And so that's always exciting at the end when I have that big reveal and they're like, oh. So
cool. That's a cool buildup. That's good marketing there. Good
Yeah. That is
sales technique. I like that.
I know.
But you know what? And more than marketing, it's that I'm so excited about what I've done. And really, I don't have anyone that really appreciates that. Like, I'll tell my husband, I'm like, come in and look at this one. And he's like, he's great. He's very supportive, but he's like, another one. I know. I've seen these for years now.
You're like, no, you don't understand. This one has a graffiti wall.
Right? Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, he'll be like, whose house are you going to this time? And I'm like, the graffiti wall tortoise clients. And the kids are like, oh, that's cool.
So
and
tell us
like,
about the graffiti wall.
They went to Austin, Texas, and I guess that they're at a park or somewhere. I haven't seen it. But there is a wall where people can go tag it and put up murals and do graffiti. And so when COVID's over, they want this backyard. They want to have their friends over. They have moved from California. They want to have their friends over and family gatherings. And they want to be able to go out in the backyard when they're barbecuing or grilling or hanging out and just have their friends go put up artwork so that they can look at it and they have that connection when their friends or their family leaves. And I just thought, I've done a lot of weird things for people. And I didn't think that this was weird so much. It's just really, really cool and honoring their friendships and relationships with their friends.
Yeah, that's definitely a great idea. So there's 2 things I want to say. One, I just want to go back to the plan and the layers and the flipping and then getting to the end, because I just want to say again, that moment of when your clients go, oh, it's just amazing that you can convey or get out of them that kind of reaction with something that's just flat in front of them. Really, a white background with something that they understand, even if they can't completely visualize the 3D aspect of it, they understand that something very special is about to happen for them. And I just, as you were talking, I just kept thinking, they understand. Even if they don't understand it, they understand that something special is taking place. And the other thing that Neil and I were kind of talking about, Neil, you had a great point. Congratulations.
Oh, wow.
About the fact that what you do really goes to show that you don't have to spend $5,000, $10,000 on software. So I think a lot of us are really getting sucked into the idea, and we've looked at them, but we're getting sucked into this idea that you have to throw out thousands and thousands of dollars of money in order to be a, quote, good landscape designer.
To convey an idea.
Right, to convey an idea and be like good at it.
Yeah, it's, and I'm sure you've seen his account, but I think his name is Danny Wang, and he will have a drawing with a blue Sharpie or maybe even an orange Marks-a-Lot, where he's like, here's the pool, here's the patio. And then built, it is just like the most fantastical, amazing thing. And that's great because he has the ability and he has, he's the installer. So he knows what he sees, but he can convey that to the client that way. I have to do just a little bit more because I need to get that point across to either the homeowner or the installer to kind of see that vision. But another thing that I do is I always put together a Pinterest board with plants and hardscape ideas and that type of thing. So
Nice.
as we're looking at the plan and I run through the plant list, and this goes back to the love of plants and plant porn, I'll be like, okay, so this symbol here, this is silver-edged horehound, and this is going to be this nice little matting silver perennial at the base of this dark green manzanita that's going to be your evergreen plant through here, and then you're going to have the big bold leaves of the yucca coming up through it and behind it. So kind of take them from standing back at the street and seeing that elevation just through words and then pointing to it on the plan. And over here in the corner, you're going to have these 3 trees that are framing the side of the home. And this will be your evergreen shrub through the center. And then you're going to have your seasonal interest with your grass, that's going to give you lots of movement in the fall color. And they get really excited. And I teach them how to use a scale.
I'm getting really excited. Do you see the big smile on my face? I'm sitting here. I'm like, I'm excited as you're talking. Yes.
So you teach them to use a scale. That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah. And I need to, yesterday I was so embarrassed because I had 2 engineer scale in my bag and I hadn't taken my architect and I did it in 1/8 inch scale. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I did this, but I have taken to buying them in bulk so that when I hand off the plan too, they have a scale that they can just then go ahead, because I know she was like, so they're going to know that this is 3 feet by 5 feet for this. And I'm like, yes, because it's all measured and it's scale. And here's the scale here. And here's how you use the scale. And she's like, just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
It is. It is amazing.
Yeah, that must be really eye-opening for people that aren't, used to a scale.
I love that. And along those lines of, what do you actually need to be successful in getting people to understand your ideas? We've really backed away from rendering. And I think a lot of that just has to do, with time constraints and the fact that we're designing and building. So
you just blame it on COVID.
There you go.
But a lot of my time is spent once the design is dealt with and the design proposals are dealt with and then the estimating is dealt with. It doesn't leave a lot of time. So I think that what we have found really works for us is, and we have the portfolio now, is to kind of go into our imagery and say, well, it will be like this, except we'll change this, or being able to show images of what we're thinking has also been, I think, a very helpful way for us where we haven't had to kind of go out necessarily and buy that super expensive software.
Yeah, I think Photoshop for us is just enough to kind of get that 3D feel as well. But even with that, so
Photoshop or SketchUp?
Oh, did I say Photoshop? SketchUp, sorry.
Yeah.
Even for where we kind of struggle is, I think just about every project we work on has a lot of topography and grade changes and rolling hills, and that just doesn't come across yet with my limited experience with this SketchUp kind of format. So I think that's why the hand sketching is better for us. The loose sketching.
Right.
Yeah, that section elevation you did the other day was fantastic.
Those sections are fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't do enough of those. But
I don't.
Go ahead.
I don't either.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things we can do, and that one wasn't, but that was just kind of a quick idea. But sometimes what we'll do if we want to get the scale right quickly is we can kind of draw out the baseline, the ground plane in CAD, and then kind of sketch up with pencil off of that. Kind of quick and dirty, but it does convey scale pretty well.
Yeah, I do a lot of that. That's about the extent of my drawing skills these days.
You lose them really
You do.
quick,
I used
Sarah.
to be a whole lot better than I am now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, and I have to say the rendering, going back to that, I do that for me. That's not necessarily something that I'll bid my time, but I usually go over on rendering. That's usually something that it has to have it for me. Like, it's not finished until it has it. And I don't know if that's a mindset from school and 5 quarters of drafting and being gathered around a table. And, my professor was in his late 70s, early 80s. And was just an amazing guy, but like, where are your directional arrows? And this line weight needs to be heavier. And
that's
what's
great,
happening over
though.
here? Yeah. If I don't know what it says, how am I supposed to know what this is? And so putting the color on it really defines everything. And honestly, it's something I think I throw in as a freebie where I'm like, I just have to go finish that on my desk before I send it off, because it's just, that's how it has to be done for me.
Well, I'm sure it helps with the sell. You know, you've already sold your time and your services, but the sell of the final space, and that it gets people super excited and they want to see it through.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, so your work has been featured in a book, The Plan Graphics for the Landscape Designer.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. How did that come to be?
So apparently, Tony Bertowski, who was a teacher at Trident Technical College, I believe, he, I think, was going through Instagram and was looking at hashtags and found landscape graphics or rendered landscape graphics. And he emailed me and said, hey, I'm working on the 3rd edition of my book and would really love to feature some of your work. And I had just gotten back into drawing again. I had taken a break off when the kids were young, you know, taken some time away from it. So I had just started my business back up here and got into it. And I was like, I got that email and I was like, I wonder if this is really legit. So, you know, enter Google. I started Googling and I found his 1st and 2nd editions of the book. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I had this book when I was in school. We had, you know, Booth and Hiss, residential landscape architecture, and we had landscape graphics by Grant Reed and
Lynn, isn't that a big one? Lynn?
Yeah.
I don't remember his first name.
Yeah, and Plan in section drawing by Wang. And when I saw Tony's book and started flipping through it, I was like, oh, this is everything you need to know to draw from beginning to end. This is fantastic. So just emailed him back and said, yeah, what do you need? And he said, I just need pictures of your stuff. And I said, okay. And
Cool.
I was like honored, because these are authors, the books that I have, I just completely and totally cherish and still pour over and still read them from cover to cover, because it's like there's so much knowledge in there of someone who's done it that it's just so inspiring. So yeah, that was a really cool thing. And then someone just contacted me, a professor of landscape architecture in Turkey, the day before they had their big earthquake, and said, I would really love to use your stuff in my teaching course if you would be willing to do it. And I still have to get back to him. But again, you know, Google, like, is this for real?
Right.
Me?
That's amazing. Now, do you think he found you through Instagram as well? Because again,
Yeah,
that kind of speaks to the power of Instagram, right?
Yeah, that was one of my questions, was how does Instagram work for you? That's amazing. Is it getting you customers as well?
It is. And I think because of the tags that I use in Boise, people will see it and be like, oh my gosh, I've gotten several emails that are like, oh my gosh, I've walked by that house or I've driven by that house, cool. And that's your work. You know, you have to come over. You have to come over.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So yeah, and the other thing that it's done for me has been seeing other people's work. Like, I think I found out about you guys because of just some random hashtag that I follow. You had posted about your first car and going to work. And it totally took me back to, you know, my first car and going to work, and it was a stick shift and, you know, 255, both the windows down. And so just finding people who had that commonality of the experience of kind of coming up in this industry and a virtual gathering around a drafting table to see other people's work and see how they solve problems has just been amazing and the most inspiring thing. I always say I have no coworkers because it's just me. I'm a one-woman show, but when I see, you know, people like Pierce or you guys or Leslie at Whole Gardens Northwest and see how they solve problems, I found my people, and I'm just so happy that I did.
That's cool. For all the flack, I think, that we give social media, and it's well deserved. Certain platforms are, you know, more, I don't know, invasive in our lives than others, but Instagram, I think, is pretty special. Just like you said, you kind of find your community, you find that inspiration through other people that are doing it. And I'm sure if people reached out to you, I think you alluded to earlier, for advice or guidance or just little tips and these sorts of things. Have you had those? What are some of those cool experiences you've had?
There's been several people that have contacted me and said, I really love hand drawing and it's something that I want to pursue. And, how should I do it? And I'll set up a Google Photos album of the books that I reference and say,
cool.
Check out these books. Even if you can't buy them, go check them out from the library and just practice the drawing them, just practice the concepts that are in them. And you're going to put your own touch on it, your own style, and you're going to get better. It's just a lot of practice. Definitely the working in a garden center to know your plants is a huge thing.
Yeah.
I think we all agree on that.
And a lot of it is kind of a therapy session too. How do you handle your time in between family and running your business? Because this business is kind of a caretaking business. You're taking care of your clients and your customers to make sure that they have a good experience, but then you also have to do that at home. And like with the kids, they don't care what you have to say. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, you still have to make time.
So it's just real easy to bring you down a notch,
Yeah. Well, it's funny you bring that up. I kind of had a question earlier on. We sort of skipped that, but this industry is so demanding, and especially for someone like where you live and where we live, where I trust it's just as seasonal for you as it is for us. So we have a very set amount of months that we can truly work and build. And then we have a sort of a lull in the winter. But when things are actively being built, it is a very, very intense schedule because you're trying to cram it all in. And so, there's always that question of how do you balance owning your own business with the seasonality of it that makes it so intense and then still give your family time.
And your self-time. Which is Samantha's problem.
Well, Samantha, you guys did the podcast on yoga, and I had practiced yoga before for 8 to 10 years. And when I started the business back up, I had let my practice go. And after listening to your podcast, I was like, you know what? That's time that I can give myself, that I need to give myself. And so I signed up for online classes, and literally they are held like across the street from the neighborhood, but I can be in here drawing in my studio, and I can go out, flip open the laptop. I still have that community feeling where I'm like, part of a group. And sweat it out and work it out. And then afterwards, I'm always like, I feel so much better because I did that for myself.
It's amazing.
This is great. So that has been a really nice gift that I have given back to myself. I don't know where we were going with that.
No, it's just that it's hard. It's hard. That's amazing that you've done that.
I'll make a
the other thing that I do is I try to stack my plans towards fall and winter. And I do most of my consulting, spring through summer, because it does get so cold out that it's not fun to go stand in someone's yard when it's, 5 degrees and
that's not fun
about plants.
You don't enjoy that? Where's your hardiness?
When you're doing your measuring, your existing conditions, good Lord, the tape measure's blowing around.
They're like, when are you going to come measure? As long as there's not snow on the ground, I like to be there when there's not snow on the ground.
Well, do you measure the site by yourself?
Yes. I've got a big tub of measuring tapes. And when I was in my early 20s, for every birthday, I would just ask my family members for tapes. So it's like I have that personal connection to my measuring tapes, which is crazy.
Cool.
But I've got my big tub of tapes. And usually when I go on consults, I'll take spray paint and tapes just in case we need to lay anything out or see how something would look. And I just devote a good chunk of time, depending on how big the property is, 3, 4, 5 hours to going out and measuring and being there and hearing the neighborhood and hearing the people walk by and hearing the annoying dog in the neighbor's yard that won't stop barking. But that's a huge piece of it for me, is allowing that time to be in the space and really feel it, to be able to design something that will direct how you feel in the space.
Right.
Cool. So the juices are flowing there. You're already starting to process. Nice.
Yeah. And I'll have I do my big piece of bond paper where I'm laying everything out to scale, and I'll start my base map to scale so that then I can just put my flimsy over the top of it when I do my
Very
forms.
That's
So I
smart.
don't have to go back and convert everything off a little piece of paper. So I take my big drawing board, and that has seemed to be the best way. But I'll have a legal pad of paper going at any point in time. I usually have 6 to 10 legal pads going with different ideas for different clients. But I'll
Wow.
have my legal pad out there and I'll be making notes like, oh yeah, this neighbor's dog is terrible, or there's a hole in the fence on this side, or there's a great view of a tree out the backyard, or there's an unsightly RV next door that we want to block.
Well, I think we're getting towards the end of our questions. I do have a very important question, but I didn't know if you had anything else.
Well, I was curious. I know one of the questions I had were the books you recommend. You already nailed that. You nailed a lot of my questions I didn't even have to ask. This was awesome. But who are some of your influences that people can go perhaps on Instagram and check out? Who are the people that inspire you? Graphically or design
Magma
wise?
Design Group,
Oh, shucks.
what I really miss is the installation side of it, and I want more of that, but just short of starting a section of my company to do that. I just have to go hang out on job sites with contractors and installers in my limited time and see that. So I love it for that aspect, for what you guys do. Seeing the physical installation and the specifications of things. I think that's an area I could really improve in. But as far as looking towards people, Barbara in St. Petersburg, Russia, so Varvado Land Design, she does amazing drawings and renderings. She has switched over to Morpholio Trace at this point in time, but she was doing hers by hand when I found her.
Mm-hmm.
Leslie at Whole Gardens Northwest.
Okay.
Out of Eugene. Her and her husband have a company very similar to yours where she does the designs and then they work on the installation together.
And I know you mentioned
there's-
Pierce. Is it Pierce B?
Pierce B, right?
Pierce B
Yeah,
Designs.
Pierce Beer Designs. So
In Georgia.
I had come across her account and saw her renderings and just started messaging her like, oh my gosh, what software are you using? Because I hadn't heard of Dynascape at that point in time. And so she was just so warm and welcoming. She's like, just call me. So I called her and we just chatted on the phone and it was amazing. But she has children that are a little bit older and then one that's around my son's age. And she has been great for just bouncing ideas off of, or like problems that we might run into, or if she has a question about plants. She's a great one to follow too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we do.
I love that
follow her.
community.
I know. That reminds me though about a question that I did skip because I saw that you have something now called the Remarkable tablet.
Yes.
And I don't really know what that is. I wanted to know more about that.
Okay, so this is, and I just happen to have it sitting right on my drafting table. I've been playing with this so much. So it's an e-ink display.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have apps or programs or anything on it. It is just a drawing tablet, and you can draw in black, white, or gray. It's got a menu on the side, just like any drawing program, where you can pick if you want a calligraphy pen, a marker, a paintbrush, a highlighter, and then you can choose your line weight if you want thin, medium, or thick, and you can choose your color. It also has an eraser where I sprung for the more expensive pen, where I can use the back of the pen for an eraser.
Oh.
Oh, that's cool.
You can select your drawings, copy them, and then paste them and make them larger or rotate them. So that's like what I did with that grass right
That's
there.
pretty cool.
That's all the same symbol, but I used it, and then I went over the top to make them just a little bit different with different textures or colors.
Now, does it create a JPEG or something that you can print from, that you can bring into your computer?
PDF, JPEG, and there's one other file. Yeah, and you create a cloud account and it just uploads it.
So you could bring that into Photoshop and then render it, say, in Photoshop if you wanted to.
Probably, yeah.
So if you draw in one line weight, can you change the line weight once it's drawn?
No.
No, okay.
You can erase it if you want
Okay.
to. But I saw your picture and I tried to
That's cool.
do my version of it. So that was looking at the phone and then looking at yours.
That is so cool.
Um,
But you
oh,
can
David-
you can, like you
David
said,
drew-
you can make that bigger, smaller, and rotate it. That's interesting.
Yeah, and that was the first day that I got it, of course. But it's got all these different templates for to-do lists or even perspective drawings. And it's been fun because there's no notifications coming in. I mean, it's literally like taking a pad, and I've always got a pad of paper and pencils around or pens around. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to try that out. And I really enjoyed it so far.
Do you think you'll head more that way?
Probably not.
No. Do you draw on bigger format paper?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would.
So when I'm just sketching for fun like that, for pleasure for myself, it's usually an 8.5 by 11 or little sketchbooks. When I'm doing plans for people, it's either 11 by 17, 18 by 24, 24 by 36.
And then you just run out and get those scanned, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, which there needs to be more reprographics shops here because there's only 2 and they're downtown. So it's a half hour there and a half hour back. And then, of course, when you're waiting for it to get scanned. So
we have to go to FedEx. That's basically what we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The most important question of this entire podcast. Here it comes. What is your favorite perennial right now?
Oh gosh, that's
an
really
unfair question.
I know it's hard.
Samantha has
it?
a new favorite one every week.
I know.
So don't get
it's almost a trick question.
Don't get
isn't
trapped, Sarah.
I know.
Be wise to her.
Well, I love that silver-edged horehound, the Marubium rotundifolium.
I have no idea what that is. That's amazing. I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, that's a really cool one. And moon carrot, it's a biennial, but it is super cool.
Oh.
Wow, Cecilary gumnifera or something. So that was the best thing
awesome.
That was the best thing about moving here was all of the new to me plants. Like being a perennial buyer for years and years, you know, I had access to all the cool woodland perennials and anything I could ever want.
The funny thing is if you ask me that question, I don't even think I could answer it. I'd be like, oh, there's so many. I'm like, what did I love this year? I don't know.
It's like asking you what your favorite song is, right?
Right. And then I wouldn't be able to remember the names anyway, most likely knowing my brain. Well, Sara, this has been awesome. We knew it was going to be super fun to talk to you. So we thank you so much. Can you just tell the people where they can find you so I don't mess it up because I usually butcher it when I
tell the people.
Do it.
Tell the people. So I'm on Instagram and I update that the most, and that's at Greenthumb Sam, SAM, and also on Facebook. I do have a website which I will be looking to revamp and update this winter. Right.
That's exciting.
That's always the case with websites.
Yeah.
Right.
Always.
In my spare time. And then I'm always hanging out around the Idaho Botanical Garden or any other local nurseries or garden centers.
And then the book was Plan Graphics for the Landscape Designer by Tony Bertosky.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. It was so good to meet you guys, and thanks
too.
for always being available for any questions and for
Absolutely.
inspiration. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you everyone for listening. Please be sure to follow us at Landscapes and Pancakes _podcast on Instagram. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and comment where you listen to this podcast. And as always, check out our work and progress on magmadesigngroup.com and Magma Design Group on Instagram.